young girl was
Murdered.
Jesus. Okay. And she shows up in spirit form
With my dead fiancé.
with your dead fiance and says what?
She says, "Help me. I'm a missing girl. No one knows yet. Daddy did it. Daddy did it."
Wow.
Our world is magnificent, filled with life in every imaginable form. But what if at the root of all these diverse forms, there was one energy, one conscious energy that created everything we know by becoming everything we know, including you. Come with us as we peek behind the curtain of what we call reality and explore the limitless wonders of consciousness in the Realization Lab. Welcome everyone to another episode of Realization Lab. I'm Jay Sherrick. Right over there we have
David Ron.
He's here once again, my friend and writing partner. And David, we have a guest with us in the Realization Lab studio, in the laboratory.
I see her.
Yeah.
I see her. She's right there.
Her name is Ivy Sunderji. Ivy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
She's laughing already.
love
You
it.
haven't even said anything.
I've done nothing.
I feel the spirit of comedy in the room.
Yes, the spirit of comedy.
So, Ivy, tell us, you're here obviously for a reason, but you actually are many things. Tell us a little bit about who you are. What are the things that you do? First of all, you're a writer, first of all, right?
That was like the main thing I do is I'm a TV writer. I've worked on the shows Greenleaf and Delilah, and I did that for like 6 years. And then for the past like 5 years, I've been more of like an EP pilot writer. So
But you're also a teacher of screenwriting.
I've been a screenwriting professor at USC.
Which, by the way, is like one of the best film schools in the world, right?
I mean, I went there for graduate school, so I returned home basically.
So you're a very busy writer and a teacher of writing.
And there's a twist.
And there's a twist, because you wouldn't be here on our podcast if it were simply...
It's not a writing podcast.
No, it really isn't.
No, we got nothing to say about
We rarely
writing.
talk about writing. So what would you say then is the twist that has brought our paths together here?
So I'm also an evidential medium.
Evidential medium.
Yes, which I didn't know what that was a couple years ago.
I still don't know what that is.
I'm happy to tell you more about it, but I wasn't a believer in anything, by the way. Like, I spent most of my life thinking you die and you're dead, and there's no afterlife, there's no God, there's no nothing.
You have unique skills, which we are going to explore. But let's go back for a second and talk about your past, as you were beginning to allude to. You grew up where?
So, okay, I grew up in rural Idaho.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you follow true crime at all, but the University of Idaho murders that happened like
You
a couple
did
years
them?
ago. I did not do them. I was born a mile away from there in Moscow.
Oh, who was killed in the university?
Four
students.
Those 4 students.
Oh, the recent
Yeah,
murder.
Yeah,
that
I
was
was
like
born like my dad went to University of Idaho, and like.
Did he do it?
I hope not.
All right.
No, they got the guy who did it. Oh, I thought you meant back a while ago there were famous murders.
No,
No,
it
you're
was
talking,
like
yes.
it was the sleepiest town on the planet, and I grew up there in what I would describe as like a very like conservative religious community. And
Were you going to church and stuff?
oh, that is the main activity. Like, we went on Sunday morning, we went on Sunday nights, we went on Wednesday, we went on Friday. I went to a Christian grade school that was very fundamentalist Christian. Like, they were creationists.
That's the one where there were no dinosaurs, or there?
Oh, no, there were dinosaurs, just not when science said there were.
Oh, no,
right?
no, no.
Oh, no dinosaurs?
Actually, I have a story about that.
Oh, okay.
So we went on a field trip to a museum in Utah. They took when I was in first grade or second grade, and they made us yell at the scientists when they were telling us about dinosaurs, because we were told they were a hoax.
Dinosaurs are a hoax.
Planted, like the dinosaur bones were like planted as a hoax
By the Jews.
No, we didn't even know what Jews were. Like,
Something ridiculous.
I had never met a Jew in Idaho, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Your school was teaching you that people had planted the dinosaurs to fool you into thinking what?
To not believe in God and that the Bible wasn't true. So we had to yell at the scientists, "Were you there?" Which is actually
Were you there?
which is
During
actually
the time
like
of the dinosaurs?
a fair question,
Right.
but also
Were you there?
And then we got kicked out of the Science Museum, and we got put on a bus, and they took us to a farm instead, and the farmer showed us how to behead chickens.
The farmers showed you how to be what?
Behead a chicken.
Behead a chicken.
Oh, behead a chicken.
Yeah, and because we got kicked out of the Science Museum for being obnoxious.
Yeah.
That was like kind of my childhood in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, what was your attitude now? You're a young person, you're surrounded by a lot of fundamental Christian thought.
And all these fake dinosaurs.
I know. I remember when I was like 8 years old, I like burst into tears because I told my mom, I was like, I don't believe in God. Because like I was told like you go to hell if you don't believe in God. Oh, and then my mom was like, it's okay to be scared and it's okay to not know. And she's like, and if there is a God, I just can't imagine he would punish a little girl for being confused.
Wow, you had a really wise mom.
No, my mom has been like my ally and champion and like everything.
We talked briefly about Ivy's early career.
It was on OWN? It was on Oprah's network?
Yeah. And like Oprah was in the first season. And
wow.
She's lovely, by the way.
People like her.
And then we arrived at the reason for the podcast.
So this sort of gets to the other wrinkle in my life. My fiancé drowned in a surfing accident. Your face, yeah, I know.
Wait, okay, so you have a fiancé.
So my fiancé, he and I met when I was in grad school at USC.
Uh-huh.
My sister, who was in an accident, ended up in the hospital. Her doctor was this really good-looking Indian guy with green eyes who I like met him and was instantly struck by him. And I was like, this man, I love this man. I'm in love with this man. He was really nice to me.
This is interesting because your last name is Sunderji,
mm-hmm.
which I didn't think you growing up in Idaho.
That was not my last name.
Yeah, okay.
That's part of the story, actually.
Yes, I see how this is going.
I met this man, and I was like, oh my God, that's the man. I was like, I'm supposed to be with that man. And then I was like, there's no way I'm going to end up with my sister's doctor. And a voice came into my head that if it was meant to be, we'd meet again someday, and that I need to live my life for now, and that life would find a way to bring us back together if we were supposed to be together.
Right.
I had a vision of a whole life with him. While I was trying to process like what I was feeling about him, I saw the house we ended up living in.
Oh my God.
But I also saw myself standing in the back of the house getting news from the police that he drowned in a surfing accident.
You saw that way back then?
Back then.
Wait,
before you even started dating?
Yeah.
This is
and I didn't believe it.
Right.
But this is right after you've met the doctor who's caring for your sister.
The day I met him.
The day you met him. And
I went home and like lay on the couch and I was like, I don't know what's happened to me. This man is like, there's something here. I feel like, I don't believe in souls or soulmates, but I think he's mine. And I was like, I'm in love with him and I don't know why. And it wasn't like, I was very confused what was happening, but I felt like I was meeting someone I had been looking for a very long time, and that I had known him forever. And he radiated light and goodness, and he was so wonderful. He actually really helped my sister. He was a magical person.
Right.
And
at the same time, you had a vision of the house that you would one day be living in.
Trying to cope with these feelings, I lay there on the couch being like, I am not well. And I thought I was just imagining this. I thought I was imagining a life with him. And I was like, even if we got together, probably wouldn't work out. We'd probably break up. And I was like, no, I think we'd get back together. And then I was like, and I think we'd be happy together. And I was like, then I saw, like, even if we ended up together, it might still end in tragedy. And after that, I was like, no, but I think I'm in love with him, and I think he's my person. And then I heard that voice, like, if it's meant to be, you'll meet again, but just go live your life for now. I just thought those were my thoughts.
But the specificity of the tragedy, you had an insight that it would have to do with surfing?
I saw he drowned surfing, and I didn't even know this man surfed. Like, he and I talked for like maybe 20 minutes while he was, this is from like a 20-minute conversation, which makes me sound deranged. And I even like was thinking like, how could I see him again? Like, could I sit at a coffee shop near the hospital and hope to run into him? I was like, no, that would be too weird. Like, you can't do something like that to someone. And I knew like, there's nothing I could do.
Right.
And I was like, I'm powerless to fate basically here. And I didn't believe in fate. So I was like, it sucks. But I was like, he's not my person. Right. Or if he is, like, this isn't how it'll happen. 3 years later, I got a job on the show Wilfred as a director's assistant. My friend Susan sold her house. The house sale was like a very contentious thing with the buyer. she didn't sell it to the highest bidder for some reason. She just had this instinct that she should sell it to this guy instead. They became friends in the house sale, and she set us up on a blind date, not knowing anything.
And it was Dr. Sunderji.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's insane. And was that the house that you saw in the vision?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
And I hadn't seen that house yet. I hadn't met Susan yet.
Wow.
And then I got to the house, and like, I was just so not a believer in any of this that I just was like, the house seemed familiar, and I was like, I just have a good imagination or something. I don't know. I had just compartmentalized this thing in myself off, and I never went there. I couldn't ask myself what it meant because I was afraid to know.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't think about it.
All right, so you were set up on a blind date with this young, handsome doctor.
Surfing doctor.
Surfing doctor, and was it just magic right away?
On the first date, it was like a missing piece of my heart.
And did you guys talk about the fact that you met 3 years before?
No.
Did you know it was him from 3 years before?
No.
You didn't know it?
We found out a year later it was him.
So even though you
didn't even remember?
Apparently I have a terrible memory for men I've met in the past. This has happened to me more than once.
Really?
Yes.
I would have thought...
Yeah, I would have thought you would have immediately been like, oh my God, it's him.
So I was like one fleeting feeling for a week that then I really had to push aside and live my life. And I really did live my life presently.
Right.
And the only thing I carried forward from that was that I knew I wanted to date a doctor. I was like, I think a doctor would be good for me. And that was as far as my brain could go.
When did you figure out that he was the same one that you had fantasized about and had premonitions?
So we were together for a year, and my anxiety was actually a real problem in the relationship. And I got so anxious I broke up with him because I was like worried about the economic difference between the two of us, because he was pretty well off and I had
nothing.
Yeah, I had a win as a writer. I'd gotten a writing fellowship at Universal. And I was like having all these great meetings, but it takes a long time to make money. And I had $17 in my bank account, and I was like panicking. And I was like, I'm not worthy of love in this condition. And I pushed him away. And he had just given me a key to his house at that point, and I put it back in his hand, and I was like, I can't take this. And I left, and I felt...
True to your premonition, you guys broke up.
We did break up.
And then you got back together?
And then he wrote me this lovely email, and he sort of spoke to my fears in a way that really made me see that what I was afraid of wasn't what he was actually dealing with. And he's like, you brought a lot of light and joy to my life. And he's like, I'm so grateful for that. And I hope even if it doesn't work out between us, we can be friends. And he's like, I want to respect you that if this is your choice, but I'm very, very sad about it. And I'm sorry I didn't live up to it, basically. And I was like, oh no. So I was like, can we please talk? And we talked a week later and got back together. And we drove to a party in Glendale at his friend's house to sort of be like, we were back together.
Yeah, that party.
And for some reason, I had this cute little convertible at that point, and we drove in my little convertible on surface streets through Glendale, and we drove past the hospital that my sister had been at.
Right.
And I met him over in Santa Monica.
Right.
So I wasn't thinking he was the doctor from Glendale.
Right.
As we drove past the hospital, I was like, oh God, I met this lovely doctor there when my sister was there briefly in the hospital from an accident years ago. And he's like, when was that? And I was like, oh, I think this was probably 2010, 2011. He's like, that's where I did my internship. It was his internship for the year after medical school. He's like, I was a doctor there then. And I was like, oh my God, you were a doctor. And he's like, I don't remember that. And I had bangs back then. I looked like a weird west or east side hipster back then, and now I had long surf hair. And he had longer hair then, and his hair was now short. And just those little superficial things, you don't expect to meet someone again in a different context like that, or
you don't put it together. Yeah.
You don't expect to be set up on a blind date with someone that you've met before.
Yeah.
You assume if it's a blind date that you haven't met.
That's incredible.
That must have been a cwery that moment when you both realized that. I mean, that must have been a very powerful moment.
Yeah, so I remember we actually pulled my car over, and we're both sort of what the hell?
Oh my
and then
God.
he's like, I'm so glad you are giving this another shot, basically. And he kissed me on the side of the road in my car. And like, it was a very romantic moment. And then I was like,
I'm going to break up with you again.
Never again. Like and then he gave me the key to his house back, and he's like, don't ever give this back to me. This is your house.
Oh.
And
it's
like,
the house you'd seen in the premonition, too.
And did you remember, when you realized it was the doctor from 3 years ago, did you remember your feelings for him from 3 years ago?
I remembered my feelings. I didn't really remember the part about him drowning. Thank God.
Right, but you remembered that he was someone special that you longed for in some fashion after you met him.
Yeah, that was a transformative moment. Like, you don't forget a vision like that exactly. You don't forget a feeling like that ever.
Right.
Like, there are some people, you meet them and you're just like, it's like you're struck down by God. I don't know. Or it's like you've been struck by lightning. And you know when you feel it. And like, when people describe love at first sight, I do think that there's a spiritual component to that now for some people.
Right.
And there's also, we're told we have all these souls who we've been with in many different iterations, and when you see one again, there's
a moment of recognition.
Okay, so you've had this kind of quirky, magical, romantic connection to this man, and you've sort of already told us that this has got a
tragedy,
a bit of a hard bump coming up. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
So before that, my sister was in a paragliding accident, and then I'll answer your question. So my sister in 2019, and this was the first sort of tip that I had, sort of the abilities I had, is that I had a premonition of her having a paragliding accident.
Really?
Okay.
We were all camping up in Mammoth, and I had this just sudden flash in my mind of her falling out of the sky. And like, I used to say I could see the shadow of death on people.
Oh.
Do I have it?
No, you're fine.
You're okay for the next week.
You're fine for a long time.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so are you.
Wait, so it's like a download of information, or it's a vision, or what is it?
The thing I actually saw her falling out of...
Oh, you actually saw
I saw it, and then I was looking at her when we were camping, and so sometimes I used to actually see an actual shadow over people's face. And in the past, when I had seen that on people's face, they actually did die.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like Amy would die for sure, but I felt like she would have a choice.
You communicated this to your fiancé?
And
what did he think?
He said, "You're anxious." And he often thought I was anxious, which I was. But a week later, she actually did have the accident as I described it, and she fell probably 60 feet. And she's a licensed paraglider and very experienced, and had if someone was going to have a paragliding accident, you wouldn't expect it to be her.
Right.
I remember my fiancé was the first person to say, "You're psychic."
Right.
And I didn't believe that was a thing, so I was just laughed it off. He's like, "I don't know what it is, but you have something, and I want to listen to it when it comes through." And I remember that was the first time I ever prayed. I remember I said to God, I was like, "I don't really believe in you, but I'm sorry if I'm wrong, and if you can please save my sister's life, please save my sister's life," because she was critically injured.
Did she break her...
She broke 36 bones, but somehow miraculously her spinal cord wasn't
severed,
even though her spine was broken, and she had spine surgery, and her pelvis was shattered, and she was in the hospital for 6 months, and it took her a year and a half to
Is she walking these days?
She's fine now.
Oh my God. But then, so you've had this premonition, and then where does it go from there?
So we were together almost 7 years in total. So he was really my husband, even though we didn't get married.
Right.
And we would have gotten married except the pandemic came along.
I remember
this
the pandemic. Do you remember the pandemic?
I have a vague recollection.
Yeah. He was in such a state of terror for so long. It's sort of all been washed.
Did I wear a mask during that? I had a mask.
I think you had eight. As I recall.
I stayed home a lot, right? Yeah.
Okay, so it's 2020 and something happens.
I remember I called my sister Amy in a panic, and she was out of the hospital at this point, and I was I kept feeling like I was going to die at the end of the year. And you
were seeing premonitions about that?
I just had this sick, shaky feeling that I was going to die at the end of the year, and I kept seeing a shadow of death over my own face, and it lasted for a week. And I called my sister, and I was like, "I'm afraid I'm going to die at the end of the year."
Your sister's like, "Why do you have to make everything about you?"
Pretty much.
Okay.
And she's like, "You're just anxious." Everyone else was like, "You're just anxious."
Apparently, people really felt you were anxious.
I am anxious. I have anxiety runs. I have OCD level and ADHD, and together they can make you very anxious.
That's a lot of letters. There. So you're telling your sister that you're to prepare for your death.
She's like, "Don't worry. You've been through a lot. This has been a hard time." you're okay, basically.
Okay.
He died on January 2nd.
Oh, wow.
So the vision you had about you dying at the end of the year
Was him.
Yeah, and it was totally wrong because it was the beginning of the next year.
Yeah, I mean...
So you suck at this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not very good. I didn't say I'm a good medium. I said there's a difference between, like, I do see things. I don't interpret them, right? But I do see them.
Wait, now, so why do you think the vision you had about you dying went a little sideways? Was that to protect you, do you think?
I don't think I was supposed to know he was going to die.
Yeah.
Because, and, like, the gift in not knowing... for sure, and not thinking it was coming was that I didn't spend my last week with him and dread that it was our last week. We had a good week together.
Yeah.
We actually had a really great last week of his life together. And like from what I do know about what happened, I don't think that there would have been any way he wouldn't have died.
So what did happen?
So he had sudden cardiac arrest while surfing and passed out into the water and couldn't be revived, basically.
Did he have heart troubles? I mean,
no one knew that. Although in the weeks before he died, I kept feeling like horrible chest pain.
You have a tricky life.
And I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he's like, you're not.
He was right.
It wasn't me. And although I do feel like the person that I was in the life I had sort of died with him, and I've had to...
that's
been thrust into a very different life on the other side of his death.
Well, now that makes so much sense. So, I mean, what you're seeing is actually accurate. I mean, it was a death of a big piece of who you were and your life and your understanding. So it was a death and a rebirth.
Like every piece of my life has changed on the other side of him dying. So that nothing in my life wasn't touched by his death.
So tell us, though, about your spiritual world, how that shifted.
The day he died, actually, I felt him talking to me.
So this is a new thing,
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, now I'm schizophrenic.
Right.
And I was like, I am not well from grief. And no one ever talks about what the reality of grief is like. It's not pretty. It's not just like, oh, I'm sobbing in my pillow. Like, I was like... physically disgustingly ill and like was like lying on the floor of my bathroom like vomiting.
Did on some level like you had this premonition like that it was his time on some, I mean, was there some sense of fate was bigger at play here?
I didn't have that perspective then.
Right.
I think spiritually he knew it was coming. Like right before he died, he said to me, like a couple of weeks before he died, he like took my hand when we were driving in the car one day and he's like, I want you to know that you and Zoe, which is our dog Zoe, he's like, I got more than I was ever hoping to find in life with the two of you. And he's like, you've made my life worth everything. And he's like,
do you think it was more Zoe than you? Or
probably. I mean, everyone loves Zoe, so.
But actually, it's one of the things that comes through from your story is how much he loved you, because frankly, the way you describe yourself, particularly around that breakup scenario time, it sounds like you're a little bit of a mess. And he loved you for all of it and because of all of it.
One thing that I've gotten as a spiritual message that has really been hard is like, I used to think I had to be perfect to be loved. And I really felt like he was like, I love you as you are. I love you as you are. And like, I did not feel very lovable back then. Like, I didn't think I was very worthy of love. And he made it clear that I really was.
Wow.
And I would say like a lot of our conflicts actually came up from my fear that I wasn't worthy of love.
Well, that's your breakup was, I mean, I don't have enough money in the bank to be loved.
Yeah. And like that fear manifested in all these different ways in our relationship.
All right. So, but let's get back to, you've spent the first day of this tragedy near the toilet.
Yeah.
And then the second day you start to hear something.
I mean, I feel like he was there with me from the moment he died, like honestly, and don't think he's ever really left my side in a nice way now.
When he starts talking to you, is it a voice in your head?
It's a voice in my head.
It's a voice in your head.
That's how it started.
Is it his voice?
It sounded like his voice, in his cadence.
Right.
He kept saying the best is yet to come over and over again to me. And I was like...
How is that possible?
I was like, no, you die and you're dead. This is terrible. And like what was happening to me was I was realizing that like, oh no, if I even can survive this, it's not just him I'm going to grieve. Like one day I'm going to grieve everyone I love or they're going to grieve me. And I was like, this is horrible. Why would anyone... Like, how is this okay? And I was like, I feel like I've had my leg amputated and it's just bleeding and no one cauterized it, and I'm just supposed to be running a marathon with one leg now. And I was like, how does anyone go forward after tragedy like this?
Well, it's just having those thoughts too. I literally had this conversation yesterday with somebody where I was like, we're all just gonna die. It's like if I wrote a movie and everyone dies at the end. Like, who would want to see that movie?
It's so sad.
It's terrible.
And I was like, this is awful. And I was like, I don't have any, if I didn't have my dog Zoe to walk and take care of, who is like my child, if I didn't love her as much as I did and have to get up and walk her, I would have just laid in bed. But I had to get up and walk her, so I had to be okay for her. For a long time, that was the only thing I could find to keep going for.
Okay, so when he was telling you the best is yet to come.
He was also saying things like, keep going, like, it doesn't matter if it's hard, just don't stop. It was like a motivational coach. It was I also heard him say, like, get up and take a shower in the morning. You won't ever regret taking a shower in the morning.
So the voice was being very practical.
Yeah. It was very practical.
Yeah.
He also was like, hire an accountant. You need an accountant to organize your money, or your money's not in order. Like, he said, get an accountant. His friends all started having like visitation dreams, kind of.
From him.
And he kept saying the same things in all of them. And
Which
they
were what?
Like, I'm okay, I'm having fun. It's okay for things to change.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you need an accountant.
No.
To everybody?
No, that was special for me. Which I did hire an accountant because of that advice.
So he's reassuring everyone that
it's okay. He's okay.
Fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a breaking point in, like, this is sort of where it all turned. Was I had to go stay at a hotel for a couple of weeks. And this was like, I remember this was my very lowest point of grief.
This is how much out from the death?
In retrospect, not very far. It was in April. He died in January. So very fresh grief.
Right.
Yeah.
I was very depressed while I was at this hotel.
Uh-huh.
And I remember in my grief group, they were like talking about signs and like asking for signs. And I felt like I had gotten some from him right after he died. And I didn't believe them really.
Right.
But so I was like, well, if you are with me and this is true, can you please give me a sign?
Right.
And he did.
Which was?
He's a quirky guy and had a lot of stuffed animals.
Uh-huh.
And he brought them to work with him in his backpack, and he claimed it was for if there were like anxious children. But I'm pretty sure he was the anxious child. But the hotel manager randomly came up to me and gave me this hot pink stuffed animal and a bag of cookies for my dog, which, like, Jahangir, his name was Jahangir, and one of his favorite things was cookies.
And stuffed animals.
And the hot pink stuffed animal was like, you wouldn't miss it. It was the brightest thing ever. I was sitting there looking at it in my hotel room. And my friend Margaret was there with me when he gave it to me. And she's like, that was really weird how he just did that. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I was like, if this is the sign, which I doubt, it will have a special name. I posted a picture of it on Instagram, no context. His sister on the other side of the country saw my story, DM'd me knowing none of this, also not at all woo-woo or believer in any of this. And she's like, that's Disco. And I was like, who's Disco? And she's like, did our parents give that to you too? They gave us that. And I was like,
that's crazy.
No, the hotel manager did. And she, unprompted, she's like, well, that feels like a sign. So she even spelled it out for me.
Wow.
She wrote it on a DM.
That is really...
And I was like, I don't think so.
You still reject it?
I rejected it so hard for so long.
That's exactly how I would be. I'd be like, no. Lightning didn't strike.
Correct.
Yeah, right? I was talking about a real sign, like a big sign.
So then I went and asked the front desk, and I was like, does the manager do this for everyone? And she's like, no, that's weird. He must have really liked your dog. And I was like, well, can I have his card to write to him and say thank you?
Uh-huh.
So I was looking him up. He had been the manager at this hotel in San Diego that was the last hotel my fiancé and I had stayed at before he died.
Oh my God.
And I had saved the key card from that hotel in my purse and still had it because that is where I thought we would get married.
You decided you were going to get married?
I wanted to get married
at that hotel?
I thought it would be a good hotel to have our wedding at.
I'd say that's a pretty solid sign.
In retrospect, yes. It took a lot to convince me that this was real.
All right, so you're having these incredible, like, irrefutable signs.
They're refutable. She's refuted them.
I refuted all of them.
Yeah.
I saw my dead fiancé walk down the street and say hello to me when I was on the phone with my friend Susan, who had introduced us.
What town are you in?
It was my house. It was on my street.
Oh, just outside your home?
Yeah, at dusk. And I just saw him walk by and stand there and say hi.
Wow.
He came up and said hi, and what did you do?
And he was not dressed weather appropriate. Like, he was dressed in his clothes. And I, like, stared at him.
He just came up, he said hi, and then did he disappear, or what did he do?
I was so freaked out. And my dog sniffed him.
The dog sniffed him, so the dog sensed him.
Yeah, it was very peaceful, but it scared the crap out of me, so I, like, hurried home. And I was like, there's ghosts. Or I'm crazy.
Right. Either way, it's pretty terrifying.
And then I looked back, and he had just disappeared. Like, I got, like, a safe distance away, and then he's gone. And I was like, he just disappeared into thin air.
And then at some point, did you go, oh, I wish I had spent a moment there with him?
Yes, I really regretted that I didn't.
Yeah.
I was so scared. But also didn't believe it. So I was just like, I'm hallucinating. I was waiting for my diagnosis of schizophrenia. Like, I was really waiting for that.
And you're seeing other spirits, too. Are they usually people you know, or they could be people you have no idea who they are?
So the thing that really tipped it for me, that I wasn't imagining this, I wasn't making this up, and it wasn't mental illness, is this girl who was missing that the police didn't know about yet came to me and told me what happened to her.
Okay.
Oh my God.
This part is how I finally was convinced.
All right.
So the way this all came to become real for you is there was a crime that was committed that you knew nothing about. A young girl was murdered.
Jesus.
Okay. And she shows up in spirit form
With my dead fiancé.
with your dead fiance. Where are you right now at this time?
I was sitting in my bed.
You're
It was like 9 o'clock at night. I don't go to bed till like midnight, so I was not asleep.
right. So you're just hanging out. You're in your bed.
Like, feeling sad.
Yeah, feeling sad. And this girl shows up in spirit form with your fiance and says what?
She says, "Help me. I'm a missing girl. No one knows yet. Can you draw my missing person photo?" And then she was like, "Daddy did it. Daddy did it." And then she said the name Kayla, and she said the last name Montgomery. And then she showed me this scene, and she's like, "I'm somewhere near here." And she showed me this stone fence with this like red husky dog jumping up and down on it with like a green tree behind it. And so I went to college in New Hampshire, and I worked on a literary magazine called the Stone Fence Review.
Oh,
And New Hampshire has a lot of these little stone fences.
right. This is the moment that convinced you, though.
In retrospect.
Okay.
Not in the moment.
You were still dubious in the moment.
Oh, very dubious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took her court case to convince me.
Oh, okay. And so what do you do with that information?
She said, draw my picture.
Uh-huh.
And she also showed me what happened, and she showed me like physical hands on my neck.
And said it was the father who did it.
I think she was saying daddy did it, but I was like, I don't know. I don't want to accuse anyone's daddy of doing anything.
Yeah,
And she said the name Kayla.
Kayla.
And she showed me, so for half a year I went to this middle school in Idaho with either the principal or the vice principal. His name Mr. Montgomery, and I remembered him because I knew his son. And she kept showing me him, Montgomery.
Montgomery. Oh, I see.
So I had that.
Right.
And so I wrote all of this down, but instead of writing down Montgomery, I just said, I think she's in middle school.
Because spirits give us clues, and you kind of have to be like, she knew that if she pointed out that person's name was Montgomery, and you would eventually get to Montgomery, the name.
And I very clearly got Kayla.
Uh-huh.
And like there are texts to my mom the next morning describing all of this too.
Right.
So
you texted to your mom, so it's all documented.
yeah, and she's like, I don't know what to do with this. And she's like, I don't know either. And she's like, that's probably not enough information to do anything.
Why, do some things come through clear and other things come through murky and not clear?
I think the veil is thick. And I have a theory of the veil is like our just material body of our five senses that filter the greater reality out. I think that's the veil, is like we're on the periodic table of elements and they're on the subatomic field.
Right. It's just hard to get the message to get through in whatever way it can.
To permeate.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you go to your mom. Your mom says, I'm not sure what we're going to do with all this information. And so what happens?
I drew the missing person photo with paint. I thought I was crazy, but I also am a compassionate person. Right. And what she said was so terrible that I was like, anyone with a heart would try, even though it's insane. Like you would try to do something if.
And can you draw? I mean,
I spent one summer at Interlochen Art Camp.
Okay, good for you.
In
doing
Michigan,
crime drawing,
doing painting classes.
Okay, so you were prepared.
I met Jeffrey Epstein while I was there briefly.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was like I had the
so
weirdest
many chapters
life.
in your life.
I have the weirdest life.
So you drew the picture. What happened?
I painted it, and if I had understood what it was for, I would have taken more time. But I was pretty dismissive. So in like 15 minutes, I just sketched it out, and I was like, she looks kind of like one of the Olsen twins from Full House when they were little.
Right.
And I drew I remember her shirt color.
How old was she?
She turned out to be 5 when she went missing.
Okay, yeah.
But the day this happened, a podcast just randomly played on my phone. Like, it just was randomly up in the queue of this woman named Jennifer, who was a medium. She worked with this organization called Find Me that mediated between mediums and the police. And so I was like, well, I guess I could reach out to Jennifer and ask her for help. She nicely had a free Zoom session with me for like 3 hours where we channeled this girl together. And she is like, I hear her too. And we got a lot of details about her, about like when she went missing. It was sometime around like November 19. And like, there's a lot of stuff.
Right.
We couldn't match her to a case.
Because the case hadn't really happened
in the news.
yet.
It wasn't in the news yet.
Yeah.
It had happened, wasn't in the news.
Right.
But during this time, I was like, okay, thank God I'm just crazy.
Right.
Or just who knows what that was. Jennifer saw it too. Who knows?
Yeah.
Months later, it's right around the anniversary of Jehangir's death, actually. I think it's just the first anniversary of his death. This was all in like the 1 year after he died.
Wow.
Which in retrospect, that is crazy.
Yeah.
But I was up in Mammoth with my family.
Uh-huh.
And my sister Amy, who had been in the accident, was like, Ivy, that girl you drew a picture of, is in the news. She really is a missing girl. Her stepmom is named Kayla. Their last name is Montgomery. And her stepmom just got arrested on food stamps fraud. And her dad has a history of domestic violence and has been arrested for like hitting her in the past.
Okay, wait.
Wow. That's intense.
So the information you got from that first meeting with this little girl and your fiancé who came to you in spirit form was something bad has happened to me. Help them find me. Kayla, the name Kayla, the vision of this man who you knew's name was Montgomery.
There's more. There's like a lot of stuff.
A lot of information.
Like we were homeless. That was part of it. Was like I kept seeing this homeless van and this car that was broken down, and I was seeing a specific car.
Yeah.
And I saw where all these different places I thought her body was.
Also got a visual of what she was like, and you drew it out.
And I drew her picture.
And then on the anniversary of your fiancé's death,
Pretty much, yeah.
Your sister says to you,
This
"Look,
girl's-
there's the picture you drew,
on the news.
and the mom's name is Kayla, the last name's Montgomery, and this girl is missing."
Yeah, and Jennifer thought the girl's name was either Haley or Harmony, and her name was Harmony.
Oh, wow.
Harmony Montgomery.
Wow.
And this was a big case in the news. It's a really, really sad case. They were homeless, and she was just missing at that point. But everyone, including my therapist, my sister, Jennifer, were like, tell the police, there's a tip line, tell them what you know, tell them what you know. This was my grief therapist, who just happened to have a background in forensic psychology and crime solving. just by happenstance. And she's like, sometimes the tiniest bit of information tips a case one way or the other. And she's like, it's not up to you to judge. They'll decide whether it's useful or not. I wrote them. They actually called me later on and interviewed me on the phone.
What part of the country was this?
It was in New Hampshire.
And did you help them locate the body?
I feel like I saw the puzzle pieces that were important to figuring out what actually happened to her, because I kept seeing something about like there was DNA in some porous tile somewhere. And I kept seeing it had something to do with like a kid having bathroom accidents. And I also saw it had something to do with Ghostbusters with the DNA evidence. Turned out that the DNA analyst was named Aykroyd, who like helped prove that the DNA in this porous tile that her body was hid behind at one point was her. That bodily fluid there was her.
Right. Wow.
And like I kept saying it has something to do with like water. It was on Lake Street. Like I was like, you're hotter closer to the water, so like Lake Street. And I was like, I also saw something about like the location of like evidence with like the food stamps fraud, and there was something with work records at Dunkin' Donuts they needed to relook at. Like her stepmom had lied about when she was working at Dunkin' Donuts, and that was she got accused of perjury or charged with perjury because of that. And then
that's what blew the case up. And
I mean,
so you're seeing this play out now. It's in the news, and then you're involved in helping the police or the prosecution. Now what's happening to you? Are you beginning to go, oh wait, I am a medium finally? Or
like I was so afraid of being judged for coming forward about these experiences, because I thought it was shameful.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a bad person, or there was some defect in me, that I was like this thing that I didn't want to be. Like it was a very stigmatized thing. Like my mom actually described my journey to saying I'm a medium as like, she likened it to someone who felt a lot of like trauma around their sexuality, like having to come out.
Right.
Because she's like, you feel as much shame and pain around it as someone like that.
You had to like come out.
I was a closeted medium.
Yeah, the medium closet.
Yeah, I was in the medium closet.
So now you're beginning to accept that you're a medium. How is this incredible story of this life going from this little girl in Idaho who's screaming at people because they were pretending they were dinosaurs? How is this now accepting that you're communicating with the other side? How has this changed you?
I used to be panicked all the time about death, and I used to feel like so afraid of making the wrong choices or like wasting my life. I was trying to make something of my existence in the confines of there's nothing more than this. Mm-hmm. And this has helped me feel more at peace with just where I'm at. It's made me feel more grounded and connected to the love I do have in my life now, and like it's made me feel like there's a lot more love in the world than I knew.
What do you make of that message which your fiancé came through with almost immediately after his death, which is the best is yet to come?
Can I tell you briefly about Japan?
Of course. Yeah.
When I flew into Japan, I saw the world from like God's eyes for a minute. Are
you saying from the plane, or are you saying you're here in Japan and suddenly you're having this vision?
Like, it wasn't even a vision. It was just, I was seeing the world almost with like fresh eyes for a minute. And I felt like I was seeing it from the other side's point of view a little bit, but just how delightful everything in life is meant to be. Yeah. And how, like, even just the sound of the train, and like there's the cute little music that plays when the train arrives in Japan. Yeah. And like, even the way, like, there were these two girls chatting with each other, and the way they were moving around was almost like this like cute little ballet. Yeah. And they were just giggling and happy, and I was like, there's so much magic in that little moment. And then I was like looking at all the snacks at 7-Eleven and all the cute little packages, and there's like things that are fizzy and they're meant to like delight your tongue, and they're a sensation and they're an experience, and like Japan is a whole culture that's similar to here, but it's a little bit different, and there's like magic in how it was made, and it was made for delight. Right. And it was made to be fun, and it was made for enjoyment. And then also there's so much love and care put into everything that's been built, that every product out there, even if there's a cynical capitalistic motive behind it, there's also love. Right. We're here to experience the delight and have the fun. And it isn't just supposed to be like eat like dry chicken breast and like work out on the elliptical every day. Like, it's fine if you're doing that, but like you're missing the point a little bit if you're just in a routine. It took you going to Japan, because I don't think this is an experience that's that only lives in the culture of Japan. This is like a truth. To me, it sounds like it took you going to Japan to just sort of see the truth, the beauty of all the little intricacies of the world, and how there's just so much love in life kind of buried in all the details. The fact that human beings make medicine for each other. Yeah. So that if you have a problem, someone else like cared to try to solve it. When did you go to Japan? Just in February. Yeah. See, I think that vision is your future. I hope so. Well, that is you seeing what's beyond all the heaviness that you have had in your life. That is a perception of reality, a movement in the direction of a much greater truth. And I will tell you, I've had many experiences from the other side. Then they keep trying to say, like, they don't want it to be so heavy for you. They're giving you these experiences, but it's not supposed to make you sad. It's supposed to give you a lightness. And like, that was sort of the first real sense of seeing reality. That should be your North Star. I love that. Yeah. That's where you're going. I hope so. In a way, if we are summing it up, it's like, the message you got from your fiancé was the best is yet to come. And really what you were here to say was that best is right here, right now, if you just kind of look at things. Just turn the dial 5% towards hope and seeing the love. Yeah, there it is. Ivy, thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you so much. This has been really lovely. You were great. You guys are great. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Realization Lab on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.